Imagine being told to choose between the people you love most in the world and the person you thought you were going to marry. What would you do if someone looked you in the eyes and said, "Send your kids away, or I'm walking"? That's not a decision anyone should have to make. But that's exactly where I found myself. And what happened next? Before we dive in, if you're enjoying this story, consider subscribing to stay updated with more compelling narratives. My name is Jack. I'm 38. I'm a single dad to two amazing kids, Emily and Ben, 12 and 10. Their mom passed away a few years back, and ever since then, it's just been the three of us. Life hasn't exactly been easy, but we've made it work. Our days are full of early morning breakfasts, late night homework, and the kind of inside jokes that only come from riding out storms together. My kids are kind, sharp, and way tougher than most people give them credit for. Honestly, they're the reason I get out of bed every morning. About a year and a half ago, I met someone. Her name was Sarah. We got introduced through a mutual friend at a weekend barbecue. She was beautiful, full of energy, the kind of person who walks into a room and somehow makes everyone laugh without even trying. I wasn't really looking for anyone at the time, but there was something about her. The way she talked. The way she smiled. I don't know. Something clicked. We exchanged numbers and started texting the next day. At first, everything felt easy. We talked for hours, went out a few times, and pretty soon we were seeing each other every weekend. She made me laugh. She made me feel like something other than just dad. It felt good to remember I was a person outside of parenting. When I told her about my kids, she was warm, curious, even excited. Said she couldn't wait to meet them. I didn't introduce just anyone to Emily and Ben. They'd been through enough loss already, and I didn't want to drag them through another emotional roller coaster. But Sarah seemed different. She asked about them constantly. Wanted to know their favorite foods, their hobbies, what made them laugh. I thought, maybe this could work. The first time she met them, she showed up with board games and their favorite ice cream. She was charming, playful, and tried hard to connect. Emily smiled politely. Ben was quieter. I could tell they were unsure. Not because they disliked her, but because they'd already learned what it meant to lose someone. I figured with time, they'd warm up. Over the next few months, Sarah became a regular part of our weekends. She'd help with dinner, join movie nights, even surprise the kids with small gifts or outings. She told me all the time how much she admired me for raising them on my own. Said she'd never seen a dad so devoted. That meant something to me. Eventually, she started staying over some nights. Nothing serious at first, just a night here and there. The kids didn't seem to mind. They were still polite, still distant. But no signs of discomfort. No tension. I thought we were on the right track. Looking back, the first red flags were so small, I almost missed them. Comments like, "This house has so much potential." "Have you ever thought about updating the kitchen, or it would be so fun to redesign the kids' rooms, maybe something more modern?" At the time, I figured she was just nesting. People want to leave their mark when they're in love, right? And I didn't mind the idea of giving the place a little polish. It was still very much a dad zone. She also started daydreaming aloud. Talking about our life down the line. Traveling together. Maybe moving to a bigger city. Even having a baby. I didn't shut her down. I liked the idea of a future with someone again. But I always circled back to one thing: my kids come first. Every time I said it, she nodded. Smiled. Said she loved that about me. And then came Jake. Jake was Sarah's younger brother. She didn't talk about him much at first, but when she did, it was always with this mixture of annoyance and pity. Apparently, Jake had lost his job a while back and was living with their parents. He struggled with consistency, couldn't seem to stay employed, and had what she called a party streak. She'd roll her eyes and say, "He means well, but he's just Jake." I figured everyone's got someone like that in their family. A little rough around the edges. I didn't ask too many questions. It wasn't my place. Around the 1-year mark, Sarah started bringing up wedding ideas. Not directly, at first. Just little things like, if we ever did a beach wedding, wouldn't navy and gold be such a vibe? I got the hint. And truthfully, I didn't hate it. It had been years since I'd allowed myself to imagine a real future with someone. The kids were doing great. We had a rhythm. A life. Maybe it was time. So I planned something quiet but meaningful. A walk in the park where we had our first date. I didn't make a big speech. Just took her hand, pulled out a small ring, and said, "I love you. I love what we have. Will you marry me?" She said yes immediately, tears in her eyes, arms wrapped around me like I'd just given her everything she ever wanted. And for a while, it felt perfect. She dove into planning mode with the intensity of someone designing a royal wedding. Color palettes. Venue visits. Pinterest boards. She was glowing. I kept up where I could, but with work, school runs, and life, I let her take the lead. That's when the tone started to shift. She started suggesting we declutter. She'd say things like, "Wouldn't it be nice if the living room was a bit more adult," and started nudging me to move the kids' things out of sight. Their bean bags, their books, their little chaos corners, they made the house feel like home. But to her, they were clutter. Then came the room. We had one extra room in the house, kind of a catch-all. The kids used it for crafts and projects. I used it for work sometimes. It wasn't glamorous, but it was ours. Sarah called it wasted space. She suggested turning it into a guest room. For when family visits, she said. Or maybe for Jake. I froze. Jake? She smiled, like it was the most natural thing in the world. He just needs a place to reset. It would be temporary. I said no. Flat out. That space was for the kids. It was where they built their science fair projects and painted their dreams. She didn't argue. But she didn't let it go either. A few days later, Ben asked me, "Dad, what's a boarding school?" My heart dropped. "Where'd you hear that?" I asked, already knowing. Sarah said I might like it. Said they have cool sports and cool beds. That night, I asked Sarah point blank if she'd brought it up. She laughed, said it was just a casual conversation. That she was only explaining what it was. But I knew. I knew she was planting seeds. And those seeds? They were about to sprout into something I could never have imagined. That night, after I confronted Sarah about the boarding school comment, I lay awake in bed for hours. She had gone home already, claiming she was too tired to keep defending herself. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. I kept thinking about Ben's face, so innocent, so confused, when he asked me that question. What's a boarding school? That wasn't curiosity. That was a kid trying to figure out if his world was about to get turned upside down. The next morning, I made pancakes. Emily and Ben sat at the table laughing about something ridiculous from school. And all I could think about was how fragile all of it felt now. Like someone had quietly placed a stick of dynamite under our lives and was waiting to light the fuse. I tried to push the thoughts aside. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe Sarah was just trying to connect with the kids in her own awkward way. Maybe I was being too protective. Then Sarah came over that afternoon. She was carrying a binder. I didn't think much of it until she opened it up on the kitchen table and started showing me printouts, websites for boarding schools, brochures, tuition rates, even some notes she had scribbled about transition periods. "Are you serious?" I asked. She looked up like she didn't understand the question. "Yes. Of course. I've done the research." I stood up from the table, my heart thudding. "Sarah, I told you this isn't even a conversation. I'm not sending my kids away." She tilted her head. "Why not? These programs are amazing. They'd make new friends. Learn independence. We'd get space to focus on us." And there it was. We. Us. The real reason. Say it, I told her. This isn't about their education. You want them gone so Jake can move in, don't you? She didn't deny it. I think this is the best way to make everything work, she said. Jake needs stability. He's trying, but he's never had a real chance. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You want me to send my kids, off to live with strangers, so your 30-something brother can have a guest room in their home? You're making this sound worse than it is, she snapped. I'm not trying to get rid of them. Then what the hell do you call this? She stood up, arms folded. I call it a compromise. Something families do for each other. No, I said. That's not what this is. You want to make space for Jake, and you're trying to dress it up like a benefit for my children. They'd be happier, she said, her voice rising. Don't you see how hard it is here? You're always working. You're exhausted. They barely see you. This would give everyone breathing room. I stared at her, stunned. You think sending them away fixes that? You think removing the only parent they have left makes things better? And then came the line that I'll never forget. If you're not willing to consider what's best for all of us, she said coldly, then maybe we need to rethink this engagement. I laughed. Not because it was funny. But because I needed to keep from losing it. You're asking me to choose between you and my kids, I said. That's not a rethink. That's an ultimatum. She didn't flinch. If that's how you want to see it. That was it. That was the moment. I knew there was no coming back from it. I choose them, I said. Always. She stood there for a moment like she didn't believe me. Like I was bluffing. Jack, don't be stupid. I stepped back. I'm not being stupid. I'm being a dad. She stormed out of the house. I sat down at the kitchen table and stared at the binder she'd left behind, pages and pages detailing how to remove my children from my life. I didn't touch it. Just tossed it in the trash. The next couple of days were quiet. She didn't call. I didn't reach out. Then, on a Saturday morning, there was a knock at the door. I was in the kitchen. Emily and Ben were watching cartoons in the living room. The knock wasn't friendly. It was hard. Purposeful. I opened the door. Jake. He stood there in cargo pants and a hoodie, a duffel bag slung over one shoulder and a stupid grin on his face. Hey, man, he said. Figured I'd swing by. Sarah said things were moving forward. I just stared at him. Moving forward? Yeah. With me moving in. She said you two were figuring out the logistics. I blocked the doorway. She was wrong. He blinked. Then laughed. Come on, man. Just a bed and some space. I won't even be here most of the time. No, I said. Not now. Not ever. Then, without waiting for an invitation, he stepped past me into the house. Walked right into my living room like he belonged there. Sat on the couch. Ben looked at me from across the room. His face said everything. What is this guy doing here? I walked over and stood between Jake and the TV. You need to leave, I said. Dude, chill. I'm just checking out the place. You're not welcome here. Sarah might have promised you something, but this isn't her house. Then, of course, Sarah showed up. She breezed in the front door like it was a sitcom entrance. Oh. Jake, you're early. I turned to her. You didn't tell me he was coming. I thought I did, she said, waving it off like it was a minor oversight. No harm done, right? No harm done? He's here like he's moving in. She smiled at me like I was being dramatic. It's just a visit. He's feeling things out. Get him out of my house. That did it. Her face went cold. You're being unreasonable, she said. He's family. No, I said. My family is upstairs. Jake stood up, looked at me like I was the problem. Fine. I'll go. But this could have been easier. He stormed out, muttering something under his breath. I turned back to Sarah. What the hell are you doing? I asked. She didn't answer right away. Just stood there, breathing hard. I'm trying, she said finally. I'm trying to build a future. And you keep throwing roadblocks in the way. Because your future doesn't include my kids. That's not true. Yes, it is, I said. You're pushing them out. Every decision you make, every comment, every plan, it's about removing them. She crossed her arms. You're stuck in this perfect little routine. You don't want to change. That's the problem. No. The problem is that you want to change everything that makes this a home. Silence. Then she said it. Maybe we're not right for each other. I nodded. Maybe we're not. And that was the end. But trust me, that wasn't the last I'd hear from her. After Sarah left that day, I felt something I hadn't in a long time: relief. A strange, quiet sort of peace settled over the house. No more tension, no more second guessing, no more future plans that didn't include my kids. It wasn't joy, exactly. More like the first full breath after holding it for too long. I told myself, that's it. It's over. But I should have known better. 3 days later, Sarah called me. I assume you've canceled everything, she said. Her voice wasn't sad. It was clipped. Cold. Like she was a wedding planner tying up loose ends. Yes, I said. Everything's off. Good, she snapped. Then we need to talk about the money. The money? The caterer, she said. I put down a deposit. I expect you to reimburse me. It's only fair, since you're the one calling off the wedding. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I'd already paid for the venue, the invitations, the flowers, thousands of dollars gone. And now she wanted me to cover a few hundred she spent on food? I'm not paying you for anything, I told her. We both made choices. We both knew deposits were non-refundable. This is part of calling things off. She didn't like that. So she kept calling. And texting. Then emailing. At first, it was all about the money. Then it became insults. Accusations. Blame. You're a heartless bastard. You abandoned me. You couldn't even help your future brother-in-law for a few weeks? And just when I thought it couldn't get more absurd, it did. I started getting messages from people I hadn't spoken to in months. Mutual friends. A few of Sarah's relatives. Some of mine, even. Hey, man. Heard you were pretty rough on Sarah. What happened? Jack, I don't want to pry, but did you really kick her brother out onto the street? She said you called her crazy. She was telling people I'd been emotionally abusive. Controlling. That I'd made her life hell. That I'd led her on, only to abandon her when she needed me most. And I realized she wasn't just angry. She was trying to rewrite the entire story. I had to sit down with people one-on-one. Tell them the truth. Explain everything from the boarding school suggestion to Jake barging into my house like it was his. Most people were understanding once they heard the full story. Some even apologized for doubting me. But the damage was done. The whispers were out there. Then, one afternoon, my phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. You're a spineless coward for not helping your family. I might swing by to get what's mine. Better hope I don't have to force it. Jake. I stared at the message for a full minute. Then I called a locksmith. By nightfall, every lock in the house had been changed. I didn't hear from Jake after that. Not directly, anyway. About a week later, a mutual friend called me up, his voice tight with something between disbelief and awe. Dude, did you hear what Jake did? No, I said. and I'm not sure I want to. He stole from Sarah. My stomach sank. What? Yeah. Apparently, he got into her bank account, drained it. Thousands gone. She's losing her mind. And now nobody can find him. That was the moment everything clicked into place. Of course Jake had stolen from her. Of course he vanished. He was never looking for stability. He was looking for a handout, an easy target. First, it was their parents. Then Sarah. Then she tried to pass him off to me. And when that failed, he took what he could and ran. For a moment, I felt bad for her. Just a flicker. Because whatever else she'd done, she didn't deserve that. Then, a few days later, she showed up. No warning. No call. Just knocked on my door. I opened it and saw her standing there, shoulders slumped, eyes red, clothes wrinkled. Like she hadn't slept in days. I need your help, she said. Jake stole everything. I don't know what to do. I didn't say anything. I'm not asking you for money, she added quickly. I need someone. Please. And for a moment, I'll admit it, I almost softened. But then I remembered everything. Ben asking what a boarding school was. Emily staring at the floor while Sarah made decisions about her life. Jake laughing in my living room like it was already his. The way Sarah looked at me and said, choose me or them. So I took a breath. I'm sorry you're going through this, I said. But this isn't my problem. She blinked, like she hadn't heard me right. What? You made your choices, I said. You put Jake ahead of my kids. You planned a life that didn't include them. Now you're living with the consequences. Her face twisted. How can you be so cold? I thought you cared. I did, I said. But caring doesn't mean forgetting what matters. She tried again. Please, just talk to me. No, I said. You need to leave. She stood there for another second, silent, shaking, then turned and walked away. And that was the last time I saw her. In the weeks that followed, things finally settled. The house felt lighter. The air felt clearer. Emily and Ben started smiling more again. We went out for burgers. Movie nights came back. The chaos faded. One night, Emily came into the kitchen and asked, so we're not getting a stepmom anymore? I looked at her, then at Ben, who was pretending not to listen from the living room. No, I said. We're not. She nodded. That's okay. And that's when I knew I'd made the right choice. Sarah had tried to create a future where my kids didn't belong. But what she didn't understand was this: you don't get to cut out the most important pieces and still call it love. You don't get to build a family by breaking someone else's. These kids are my life. My family. And I'll protect them until my last breath. So if you ever find yourself in a moment like mine, wondering whether you're overreacting, whether you're being too protective, whether love should feel like compromise after compromise, remember this. Real love never asks you to sacrifice the people you'd die for. It stands beside them. It builds with them. And if it doesn't? Then it was never love in the first place. If this story resonated with you, let me know in the comments how you'd have handled it. Would you have done anything differently? Have you ever had to make a choice like this? And hey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. There are more stories to tell. And you won't want to miss what's next.